So, in the Al Hanisim that we say on Chanukah and Purim, we thank the Rebbeinu Shalom Al Ha-Nisim, but Al Ha-Purkon, the miracles, the redemption, Al Ha-Gvuros, Al Ha-Teshuos, the Al Ha-Milchomos, She'osisa V'Avoseinu Bayomim Oheim Bazman Hazeh. It seems to be out of order because it began with the Milchomos. Only after and during the Milchamos we experienced Nisim, Purkon, Gvuros, and Shuos. So the Milchamos should have been the first thing that we mention and not the last thing. But the truth is that not only the order is difficult to understand, we Bechlal don't understand why we mention the Milchamos. The Chanukah, what we're celebrating is the Nisim and the Purkon. We thank the HaKadosh Baruch Hu for redeeming us. Why would we be thanking for the Milchamos? Why do we put the Milchamos into the Birchas Hoidah? There's an ancient Megillah known as Megillas Tainus, which has a long list of dates during the year that are Osur Behesped V'Tainus. Since they are days of joy, days of celebration, because of Nisim that happened during those days, once upon a time. Anyway, this Megillah was written in the time of the Vayeishev. The Gemara in Rosh Hashanah Daf Yud Ches says that Botla Megillas Tainus. That's the Gemara's conclusion. We no longer keep the dates that appear in Megillas Tainus as days that are Osur Behesped V'Tainus. But in any case, in Shabbos Daf Yud Gimel Amud Beis, the Gemara has a discussion. Mi Kosva, who wrote the Megillas Tainus? And the Gemara says that Hananiah ben Chizkiah v'siyatoi, Hananiah ben Chizkiah and his faction, Shehoyu mechavevin es hatzoros. They held dear the tzoros, the troubles that Klal Yisrael experienced. And then it says in the Gemara, Omar Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, Af onu mechavevin es hatzoros. We also hold dear the tzoros. Aval ma naseh she'im bonu lichtov ein onu maspikin. If we would write the dates of things that happen in our times, the calendar wouldn't be long enough, and therefore we don't do it anymore. But what does it mean that Chizkiah v'siyatoi were mechavevin es hatzoros? Rashi says es hatzoros shenigoli mehem. The tzoros that they were redeemed from. V'haneis chaviv aleihem. The miracle was cherished by them. Lahazkiroi l'shivcha shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. To mention the neis in order to praise HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But the lashon of the Gemara is shehoyu mechavevin es hatzoros, which would seem to indicate that not only the redemption and the salvation from the tzoros they were mechabev, but they held dear the tzoros themselves. An avada that needs a pshat. The Sfas Emes over there in Daf Yud Gimel and Shabbos says, it would seem to me to explain, Mida osu simche kishenigalu, since they made a celebration when they were redeemed, Ike raya, this proves to us, shemechavevin es hatzoros, that they held dear the tzoros themselves. Dilachoire, hoyotza schar ha'geula behefseido, shenitztaru b'shas hatzorah. The benefit of the geula is lost is counterbalanced by the tsar that they had during the tzara. Umida asu simche kishenigalu al korchoch muchach shehoya chaviv lohem shnehem hatzara v'hageula mimeno. Meaning to say, Lachara, that if after we are saved, we go back to where we were in the first place. There's no reason to thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu for saving us, since we believe that he who saved us is also he who put us into the tzara in the first place. And it would have been better if he wouldn't have put us into the tzara in the first place. So what are we celebrating? What are we thanking for? So we celebrate the Yeshua only because after the Yeshua, we recognize that through the tzaros, through the pain, we grew, and we came to a place that we wouldn't have reached if not for the difficulties that we experienced. If there's no gain, the pain was in vain. It's only because we grow from Yisurim that we could be thankful for the whole package. Shahoyu mechavevin es hatzorois. You know the name of this Yom Tov is Chanukah. And this is how what we call the Yom Tov that was instituted to celebrate the victory over the Yevonim. This name appears already in Mishnayos, but in Chazal we find no explanation for what this name means. I mean, we know that Chag Pesach is based on the Korban Pesach. We know that Shavuos is based on the Shavuos Tispalach. We know that Sukkot is Kibbutz Sukkot Shavti. We know that Purim is Al Shem HaPur. But where does the word Chanukah come from? So it's so mysterious that the Ran actually explains it as a Roshei Tevis, Chonu Chofhei, that this 25th day of Kislev, Chofhei, was the day that they were Chonu, that they rested from the Milchama, or a day that we rest. But there's a more simple possibility in explaining this name. The Mishnah in the end of Masechtas Megillah, says that we have a long list in Masechtas Megillah of the Kriyas HaTorah, that which portion of the Torah we read on the various Yomim Tovim. And over there it says, B'Chanukah B'Nesiyim, meaning that during the days of Chanukah, we read in the Torah the Korbanos that the Nesiyim brought during the Chanukah Samishkon, as it appears in the end of Parshas Nosai. So what's the connection? How is this in Yonah D'Yoyma of Chanukah? The Korbanos that the Nesiyim brought during the Chanukah Samishkon in the Midbar. So the Torah says in Siman Tov Reish Pei Daled, Umefarish B'Psikte, Shenishlomo Melechetz HaMishkon B'Chofei B'Kislev, that the Melechetz HaMishkon was completed on the 25th day of Kislev. We still don't understand. I mean, the Yom Tov of Chanukah was instituted to celebrate the Yeshua from the Gzeira of the Yevonim. How is the Kriyas HaTorah and the Chanukah Sanesiyim in Yonah D'Yom of this Yom Tov? I mean, we don't read this reading because it's the days of Hashlomas HaMishkan. We only have a special Kriyas HaTorah because it's Chanukah. Now, so it must be that the Kriya somehow is in Yonah D'Yom of Chanukah. How did it become in Yonah D'Yom of Chanukah if this is really based on a totally different event that happened during this time many, many years earlier? But if you look into the Psikta, it says like this: Amar Reb Chanina, b'Chofhei b'Kislev nigmer Melechus HaMishkan. The Mishkan was completed on the 25th day of Kislev. V'asa mekupol ad echad b'Nisan. It was folded. It was left folded until the first day of Nisan, even though all the parts were complete. Ume'ato hifsid Kislev. So Chodesh Kislev lost out because it was already ready and it wasn't erected. Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu alai l'shalom. HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, I have to pay back. I have to pay Kislev for what it lost. Alai l'shalom. Ma shilei lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu Chanukas Chashmoinoi. How did HaKadosh Baruch Hu pay back Chodesh Kislev? With the Chanukas Chashmoinoi. So this means that the Chanukas HaMizbeach and the Mikdosh, through the Chashmoinoim, has its roots in the Chanukas HaNesiyim that didn't take place in Kislev. but it should have, could have, would have. So we could understand that the Kriya in the Chanukah Sanasim is actually in Yonah de Yoime of Chanukah, because Chanukah is rooted in the Chanukah Sanasim that should have been in Kislev, and that's how Chanukah comes about. And this is l'chorah the Pasuk Taich in the name Chanukah. It's al shem the chinuch that the Chashmonoim made, which has its roots in the Chanukah Mishkan. Bemis the Maharsha already says this on his own on Daf Chaf Aleph in Shabbos. He says Chanukah Pirish Haran Kaloi Marchonu b'Chaf Hey Ayin Shom V'Ktsas Kosher Mai Chanio Shayechoche, etc. V'nir lefarish the nikreis Chanukah al shem Chanukas ha mizbeach. Kedamrinam beperik Rabbi Shmuel. The Gemara says in Avodah Zarah, the beis Chashmonoi gonzu avnei mizbeach sheshikzu anshe Yovon la'Avodah Zarah. The anshe Yovon, they turn the avnei mizbeach into Avodah Zarah, and therefore the beis Chashmonoi buried those stones, and they made a new mizbeach, and therefore they had to do a Chanukah sa mizbeach. V'lochei nikra Chanukah. He then brings the psik and he says that the payback that Chodesh Kislev had was with the Chanukah sa mizbeach through Matasyo, that shikzu anshe Yovon mizbeach hayoshon, and therefore they had to make a mizbeach Chodesh. So Chanukah is really a lashon of inauguration, a lashon of chinuch. As Rashi says in Parshas Lech Lecha and Parshas Shoftim, kol chinuch lashon haschole. Chinuch is a lashon of beginning. So the Chanukah Mishkan in the Midbar, Avada was a beginning. It was a great celebration. B'yom Katlois Moshe, it says that it was a day of happiness. This was the beginning of V'shochanti b'soicham, which was that HaKadosh Baruch Hu dwells b'soicham in Klal Yisrael. This is what Brias Oilam was for. The lasois loy dira b'tachtoinim through the va'asu li mikdash. But I ask you, the Chanukah of the Chashmonoim took place during the Yemei Bayis Sheni. The reason that they had to make a Chanukah was because Shiktzu Anshe Yovon es Avnei HaMizbeach, and therefore they had to build a new Mizbeach. This is a simcha. This is a celebration. This is a payback for Chodesh Kislev. I mean, I say the Chanukah of the Chashmonoim is like somebody, Rahman al fell and broke his leg, and after he suffers pain for a while, and he can't walk, and he after all kind of treatment, he finally once again can walk. So do we celebrate that as a beginning, like we celebrate the first steps of a young child? I mean, how is the Chanukas HaChashmonoim a payback to Chodesh Kislev for having lost the Chanukas HaMishkan in the time of the Midbar? So it must be that the Chanukas HaChashmonoim really was a new beginning, a completely new beginning. We reached this madrega only through the regression. Ulecha asisa shem godol v'kadosh ba'olamecha is something new that never was. The self-sacrifice of the Chashmonoim had an impact on all the coming generations. If not for the Gzeira, if not for the difficulties, we would have never reached this level. So this is a Chanukah. It is a beginning of something completely new, and it is a Pira'oin for Chodesh Kislev. And therefore, we celebrate and we thank for not only the Nisim and the Purkon and the Chuos and the Gvuros, but also Al HaMilchamos, as Chazal say about the Chizki of Siyate, Mechavevin Es Hatzoros, because we understand that the whole package was necessary. We wouldn't have come to this Madrega if not for the regression that brought about a progression. We all know the pasuk B'shuv Hashem as Shivas Tzion hayinu kecholmim. Then the time of the Geula will be like dreamers. I mean, what does it mean? We'll be like dreamers. The Radak says that when we'll be zoichet to the Geula, so the memory of Golus and all the troubles that we experienced will fade away like a bad dream. Hayinu kecholmim. We'll look back at the whole Golus. We'll forget about the whole thing. It'll be like we experienced a bad dream. It's not reality. But I wanna suggest another taich. You know, in Achris Hayomim will be kecholmim, meaning will be like the great biblical dreamers, Yaakov and Yosef. Yaakov Avinu dreamt in Beisel, and what did he dream? HaKadosh Baruch Hu promised him, "Ha'oretz ashat ha'shoichiv oleh, l'cho etneno u'lezaracha, v'hoya zaracha ka'afar ha'oretz, u'faratzto yoma v'kedma v'tzafoyno v'negbo, and v'nivruchu b'cho kol mishpacho yso adomo u'bizaracha, and v'hine anoichi imach u'shmarticha b'chol asher telech," etc. But what actually happened? It's like they say, I mean, he never had a good day in his life. In this week's parsha, it says, Vayeishev Yaakov. Vayeishev, Rashi understands, is an expression of calm and tranquil life. Rashi says that this is inconsistent with Yaakov's life because Yaakov's life was not at all tranquil. As the Medrash says, he suffered a tzara after a tzara. I mean, he escaped from Esav. He went to Lavan. Dinah was taken. I mean, so what does it mean? Vayeishev Yaakov be'eretz megurei Yovev. Rashi says, Bikesh Yaakov leishu b'shalva. That was his wish. It was what he wanted, but he it didn't actually happen. Not only that it didn't happen. It's kafatz olav rugzei shel Yosef after he already had to escape from Esav, after he experienced vayachleif es maskurti eser moinim bebeis Lavan, and after he gave him the wrong wife, and he wants finally some manucha. It's kafatz olav rugzei shel Yosef. So what's with the dream? What's with the dream? Yosef also dreamt. He dreamt that he's going to be a king. But what happens? Not only that he wasn't a king, he became a slave. Yeah, he was Eved Nimkar Yosef. Yeah, and not only he became a slave, he was put into jail. I mean, everything is punkt fakert. But in the end, it turns out that what looked like a regression, what looked like a setback, was really a progression. Yaakov escaped Lavan, Esav, and went to Lavan, who tricked him, and he gave him Leah in the place of Rachel. But Dafke through that, he was Maimed Yud Beis Shvatim. Out of the wrestling with the Soroi Shel Esav, he receives a bracha, and his name is no longer Yaakov Miloshen Ekev Miloshen Ahil, but he becomes Yisrael Kisarisa Melikim Ve'anoshim Vatuchal. In other words, he reaches a higher level. Rugzoi Shel Yosef turns out to be the best thing, because for 22 years Yaakov Avinu was misabel. He was mourning the loss of Yosef. Not just was he mourning. In Parshas Miketz, when the sons of Yaakov ask him to give them Binyamin to fulfill Yosef's request to bring Binyamin down to Mitzrayim to see him, so it says, Vayomer aleim Yaakov aviyam. Yaakov said to them, Oisi shikaltem. Yeah, you bereaved me. Yosef einenu. V'Shimon einenu. Yosef is gone. Shimon is gone. Ve'es Binyamin tikochu. Now you're going to take Binyamin. Olai hoyu kulono. So Rashi says, Oisi shikaltem. What does that mean? Rashi says, Malamed shechoshdoi shechoshad shem maharaguhu oy machru ki Yosef. In other words, Yaakov Avinu was choshed that maybe they sold Shimon, or maybe they killed him like Yosef, which means to say that Yaakov Avinu didn't really buy the story of Chaya Ra Achalosu, Toraf Yosef. He suspected that they killed Yosef, and now they killed Shimon. Now imagine what it means for a father. I mean, to not only lose his son, but to think that his own children killed their brother, right? And not only one, maybe even two. And he must have also felt guilty because, he sent Yosef down to Shechem to look for the Achechem Royim B'Shechem, to look for his brothers. Yaakov Avinu was aware of the fact that they weren't getting along with Yosef. And now that he's thinking for 22 years that maybe they killed him. I mean, what does that feel like? So it's not just mourning, but it's also maybe regret and guilt. Not that we're talking about Yaakov Avinu, but we're talking about what we're meant to learn. So the thing is like this: but in the end, after these 22 years, it turns out that Elokim chashav al toiva, as Yosef says to his brothers in Parshas Vayigash, va'ato. Now I want you to know, loy atem shalachtem oisi heina. It's not you that sent me here, he says to his brothers. Ki ha Elokim. It's the Rebbeinu Shalom that sent me here. Vayisimeni la'av le'paroi u'la'odin l'chol beisoi u'moishol b'chol eretz Mitzrayim. That's what I'm here for. It's not because you sent me here. And as he says in Parshas Vayichita, his brothers, va'atem chashavtem alai ra. You thought negative about me. You tried to do something bad. But Elokim chashav al l'toiva. L'man asoi ka'hayoy mazeh lahachyois amrav. So if the Yosef was already an Eved Mitzrayim, which is the total opposite of being a melech, as he dreamt, he had another mapola, even a greater mapola. He was put into jail. It's the worst of the worst. But dafka by being there, was he poised the chaloimis of the Sarah Mashkin and the Sarah Oifen, through which he actually became king. So the great dreamers, Yaakov and Yosef, teach us that what you see is not what you get. Yeah, what seemed to be a regression was actually part of the progression. And therefore we say that B'shuv Hashem, Eshiva Tzion, Hoyinu Kicholmim, will be like those Cholmim, Yaakov and Yosef. We'll see that what we consider to be negative was actually the road to positive. Yeah, all the parts of the divine puzzle will come together. Yeah, we'll understand, as we say in that kapitel, that only the Zorim Bedima, those that sow with tears, could be Berino Yiktsoiru. It's all part of a process. And therefore, Oz Yimole Ischoik Pinu, Ulashoinenu Rina. And as the pasuk says in Yeshaya, "V'amarto b'yomahu, oidecha Hashem ki onaftobi." I thank you, Hashem. We will say that you were angry with me. Yoshoiv apcha usenachameni. Now your wrath has subsided, and you have comforted me. So we will thank the Rebbeinu Shalom for everything, even for the onaftobi. That is the true meaning of Nechama, because, Vayinochem Hashem ki osa es ha'odam means he reconsidered. So true Nechama is reconsidering the past and seeing it in a different light. So we will thank the Rebbeinu Shalom not only for the Nisim, we thank the Rebbeinu Shalom not only for the Nisim and for the Purkon and for the Gvuras and for the Jews, but also for the Mulchamos, Sha'asisa, La'Veiseinu V'lanu. And even today, when we don't see the end, we're called on to believe humbly that we only see bits and pieces of a big puzzle that the Rebbeinu Shalom is putting together slowly but surely. And only then it'll be Oz, Egmar, Bashir, Mizmor, Chanukah, Samizbeach. And for every individual, the message is not to be discouraged by setbacks, because everyone can, in his own life, find a way to grow from every difficulty that he experiences and thereby grant a positive meaning. Every difficulty is a challenge, and every challenge is an opportunity for growth. Rabbi Say, I want to wish you all a freilich and Chanukah, and we should be zoiche to connect to the true meaning.